So welcome everyone. We have a few people from XR Bootcamp included today. My name is Lucas. We have Diego, we have Josette, we have Laura, we have Ray, and we're gonna uh, show you some really good tools, recommendations, tips that are gonna be very helpful if you are interested in developing for MetaQuest specifically. But some other tips might also be applicable if you're developing for mixed reality in general. So the agenda is what you see here. We're gonna start with ideation and packaging, which actually you can apply to every platform and every device. Then we're gonna start with we're gonna continue with some tips on how to make um, the trailer that we need to present at the end of the hackathon. Very important, right, Luke? Um,
Yeah, maybe I would just quickly say that I'm Luke Powell and I'm the sponsorship lead at MIT Reality Hack. So on behalf of MIT Reality Hack team, I would like to welcome everybody and happy to see all of you ahead of the hack. It's very important to be ready, and that's why we have this great initiative from XR Bootcamp to, give you something ahead of the hack, so you don't panic and you can focus on your projects throughout the hack, and you are all ready. So thank you, Lucas, and the team for taking this initiative. Yeah.
Thank you, Luke.
Organization.
Okay, I'm gonna mute. Yeah, then when we're gonna continue with the dev part, the mixed reality dev workshop, we call it, where we're gonna show you all the latest tools that Meta has been releasing this last year. There's been a lot of changes since 1 year ago, last reality hack. So another one I need to mute. Okay. And we're gonna finish with an open Q&A. We don't have a set limit to this meeting, so we're gonna stay for quite a while if there's a lot of questions. So it might be a very good chance to ask anything about mixed reality or Quest development. So without further ado, let's get it started. Laura is gonna start with the ideation and packaging. So Laura, do you want to take over?
Yeah.
I'll let you share screen. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now you should see my screen, hopefully. So I'm Laura. I'm XR developer. It's nice to meet all of you. And I will talk about today about ideation. So let's jump right into it. So essentially, you will be creating prototypes. So what is a prototype and how not to end up with multiple features that maybe in the end don't work and you don't have a solid project to share. So my most important advice would be to create one core feature that's going to sell your idea nicely. Maybe you can go a little bit more into depth with it, polish it, but in the end, it should be able to prove your concept. Besides that, I would suggest to balance between depth, polish, and features. Don't go crazy on any of those. Max maybe like 2-3 features so you don't get really lost in between them. And don't forget you can also always test and scope down based on your time frame and what you will be able to do eventually. So you have a few questions that you can think about, like what need or problem are you solving? Is there a demand for such a product? This goes hand in hand with market research. And I really like to use Gummy Search and GigaBrain that actually summarizes Reddit communities and comments. because usually your audience is already in the Reddit communities. So this way you can prove, is there a demand for such a product? You can go through like what are their issues they would like to solve. Sometimes they even propose ideas or solution requests. So this way you can nicely validate your idea. Also, one thing you have to think about is why does it make sense that you will wear a headset for X amount of hours, why you will not use a real life solution. For example, a nice example that I like to use is Dance Guru, where you can visualize the steps. You don't have to step on anyone's feet while training. So this already gives an advantage over real life solutions. Besides that, really important is that you keep the time frame. You adjust to the time frame, so you don't end up with something unfinished. And you can always, as I said before, scope down and adjust her usually nice issues that people are struggling with that you can actually solve. And don't only use Google, but you can also use Google Trends to see if it's a topic that's discussed a lot. You can also use ExaAI that contextual understanding has, so it can nicely summarize for you, and it's a really good search engine. So I have some examples. So how can XR help me pursue some interests? Maybe I want to learn drums or piano. There goes Paradol or Piano Vision. Without the need of equipment, you can learn how to play piano. Or last year's winner is Pencil, that can help you learn to draw. I can show in more detail. Here also recordings from the apps. So Pencil merges real pencil with paper, and it actually teaches you how to draw on a real paper. Flavor is also a really nice example of previous hackathon winner, where it takes picture of your fridge and it uses your actual ingredients to suggest you recipes that you can do, and it also has an AI assistant that guides you step by step through the recipe. I have more examples. Maybe you want to try and learn how to make your own clothes. So Stitch is a great app where you don't have to cut out your cardboards to sew some clothes. That's a really nice niche idea. Dance Guru I already
Made a
mentioned.
moment though. Oops.
Oh, okay. And Ever-Present can even is a social app that can connect you with your loved ones or the ones that are maybe too far away from you, and connect you through space and time. So these are just some examples from previous hackathons that won because they have some benefits and really nice, unique ideas. So besides the idea, it's really important how you sell your idea. So I have some tips how you can make your trailer appealing. It's always nicer for the end user.
Hey Lara, one second. Sorry, I'm Farhan, the co-founder of XR Bootcamp. So, I mean, we wanted to start for people who are already joining, but we set 1:30 ET for officially. So I suggest that you can give a little bit of maybe recap of because we just started. I just want to make sure that whoever joins now is also benefiting from this. So it's nice that we are talking about this. We can even go a little bit deeper because the core part of the today's session is much more on the technical side. But this one is much more like for people who really want to see compelling ideas. Maybe if you can give I know that it will be a little bit maybe duplicate for people who joined a little bit early. But I just want to make sure for people. Anyways, it is recorded, but let's make sure that we have everyone now. We already doubled in the last few minutes, so let's make sure that everyone is hearing. Everything is, by the way, recorded. Don't worry, we will make it on demand. MIT team will share with you the recording probably by the end of today. So can you give us a little bit of recap, Laura, so we can maybe quickly go over it?
I try.
Okay.
So when it comes to prototype, most important advice would be to focus on one core feature that will sell your idea and prove your concept, that will be really polished, maybe a little bit more into depth. Don't get lost in too many features that in the end might not work altogether. Then here are some questions. Is there a user need or a problem that your idea is solving? Why does it make sense to wear headset instead of real life solution? Here I gave an example of the Dance Guru, where you can actually visualize the steps and track your steps, and you can learn how to dance that is advantageous against a real life solution. And then market research is really important. Are there similar apps? Really go search the internet, because there are many ideas out there, but you have to make it unique and be creative. Like the Dance Guru app, they put controllers to the feet. And for market research, I really like to use GummySearch or GigaBrain that looks through Reddit, and it summarizes community comments and what they are struggling with. I can maybe show this slide. It summarizes nicely what is their pain or anger, what issues they would like to see solved. There are many times if you don't have an idea, they have even idea proposals or solution requests. GummySearch, I forgot to mention before, it's not totally free. That's why I also include GigaBrain, that's totally free. That also summarizes Reddit communities. Yep, and also be really careful with the time management. You can always scope down. As long as you have that one core feature that's going to prove your concept, you can always scope down the other features so you fit in with the time frame. Here are just examples that I wanted to mention, like how can XR help me pursue an interest? Maybe I wanted to learn how to draw, so I can use pencil, a real pencil, and a paper that guides me through the steps so I can draw nicely. Or I wanted to always learn drums or piano without the need of buying the equipment. So there's paradiddle or a piano vision. That's already advantageous against like real life solutions where you don't need to buy the equipment and it's not loud. So here are the little bit more details about the project. So Pencil has really intuitive comments and guidance of the user, and it uses physical pencil and paper to teach you how to draw. Flavor is another hackathon winner that uses actually your fridge ingredients to create personalized recipes, and it guides you with an AI assistant step by step how you can actually cook the meal. And here are more hackathon winners. Actually, Stitch helps you learn how you can sew clothes without the need of cutting your own cardboards, saving time. Dance Guru, I already mentioned, you have a virtual partner, real-time feedback, and visual guidance of the steps you need to make. And Ever-Present can connect you with, is a social app that can connect you with family members or long-distance relationships, and you foster emotional connection across space and time. And here, I think we stopped before. I hope that's an okay recap. So besides idea and scoping down your idea, it's also really important how you're gonna sell your idea. You have to make it appealing to the user. So I have some few tips. It's always nicer if you tell a story with your idea. It will appeal to end users and judges, always nicer. Maximum, I would suggest to have 1 minute trailer. I think 20-30 seconds should be more than enough to actually prove your concept, but don't spend more than 1 minute. And always add subtitles, because not everybody will play the sound, especially if you're gonna share your project on the internet and social networks. And also give yourself enough time to prepare for the recording and editing the video. Don't really rush it in the last hour. So actually, how you can make sure that you have a nice recording. Be sure you have nice lighting. That's like number one rule. So everything looks smooth and nice. And don't do any sudden movements. And if you do, cut it out, edit the video, edit just the important parts to your trailer. It's also really useful if you don't only record what's in the headset, but you have another view of the user. Choose a nice environment. That's always nice. And again, take your time while filming. Don't rush it. And I have some editing tips. Edit out just the essential parts. Don't leave out anything that's unnecessary, because you really have just 30 seconds to 1 minute to show your idea and concept. You can add sounds, visual effects to make it more appealing, and add nice transitions. Don't just cut up the recording. And also here I have some links that may be useful for you. You have stock footage. My personal favorites are Pixabay and Freesound that I use really often. And that would be it from my part on the ideation and how to record a nice video.
Thank you, Laura. This quick presentation. I hope everyone has the chance to a little bit of get some insights. It will be really helpful, especially when you are trying to understand how to position your project. I think this is bringing a lot of opportunities. In terms of video length, we always recommend 1 minute, but I'm sure MIT team will maybe share some kind of, I don't know if there's any specific recording of the video length, duration recommendation from MIT. We feel like keeping it short is always best, but yeah, we will also stick to the MIT's video length rules. At the end of the day, it's all about how you can relay your message, because the first part of your video will be probably the most important for the judges, for the people who are looking at your experience. And the other thing is actually in the whole slides, as you see, we are trying to help you on finding compelling experiences, ideas. As you can imagine, this is not the first hackathon focusing on mixed reality or lifestyle and other interesting use cases that you can build with mixed reality. And just to let you know that there are many apps, games already being created on the store, on many hacks that actually Meta also supported many hacks last year. So we have the links of these previous hacks as well. So you can literally search for it. There will be also, I'm trying to get some list from Gabriel, who's from Shapes, to have this mixed reality list. So you can quickly search. I think it's all about understanding what are the existing similar use cases out there, which is being created before you, and trying to find something new on top. Right now, AI is coming and lots of different capabilities coming. Meta tools, as you will see, becomes more and more powerful, different tool sets coming. So it's all about using these superpowers for your own use case. Okay, that's very important. And we will go to the technical side of the session right now. But before that, I hope this session a little bit helps you to understand, navigate. Any questions from you? You can literally unmute yourself.
I just want to comment quickly
Yeah.
on the video itself, and so basically just to fill up, in principle, you should provide the video between 1 and 3 minutes, but as mentioned by Laura, the shorter you convey the message, the better. So you should actually really convey the message in the first 5 to 20 seconds, and it's treat it as an elevator pitch. So the short and condensed clear message is the winner. And you can actually see the submissions that were throughout the years. So if you go to DevPost and look for MIT Reality Hack, you will see there is videos there from different years, and I would use it as a reference for you to know what is expected, and you can see the winners, so the best practice, because those really attracted attention and won. So that's just my 5 cents on this. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. One more thing is maybe you have seen the announcement we did that we have quite a large group of mentors coming this year as XR Bootcamp, helping you in all the way we can, especially on meta tools that we will show some of them today. Just to let you know that some of these mentors are actually the creators of the example projects that we have shared a few minutes ago. So you can literally also utilize this opportunity to ask them if they feel like this is something unique or not, especially the first night in the hackathon will be quite, I would say, like a roller coaster ride, because you will go from one idea to another, one team to another. So it's all about finding the the compelling idea. As far as I have observed, that the social aspect this year will be also quite big. I would strongly suggest that try to add some kind of like a social aspects to your experience. We are seeing so many single user experience. I think maybe this is the time that you can bring some kind of like a social aspect for this hackathon. This requires, of course, a little bit of much more focused learning, the journey of the whole meta MR kit, not only for the single player, but also multi-user. Our team will give some links, and we are also updating this page. You can think of this like a cheat sheet with all the links that you need. So feel free to look at these links. We will share QR code. I think in the next few slides, Diego will share. And in addition to that, what I can share, yes, Diego already started the presentation. The last thing that I can share is make sure that you are already thinking about use cases before even coming to hack, because it's always best that you make a little bit of feasibility before coming. At least maybe have 2-3 ideas if you really want to build something. Maybe you will find a better project, but at the end, it's always good that you are a little bit making your preparations. In terms of preparation, technical preparations, Diego will mention, we have actually a Bitly link, which is a course which is being created with the help of meta engineers. This is the first course which is being published actually quite like a year ago, but it's being recently updated, focusing on MR development end-to-end, focusing on especially the most important MR interaction and other MR development features. So, and it has a very interesting GorillaZilla game that you can also play. So this is something that we will also share both on the Discord channel of MIT and also on the chat. So if you have any further question regarding the non-technical side of things, or ideation, or finding a compelling idea side of things, feel free to ask now. We will have a Q&A session, by the way, after everything is finished, so you can also keep it there. How we can enroll the Meta MR course? Yes, we will share the Bitly link with you in a few minutes. Our team will share. So it's completely free course. So I think it's very easy to finish. It's like a Netflix style. It's like we call it binge, follow along. Feel free to go over it and then follow along the course. It will definitely be 1 week. Will definitely be enough before you come to the hackathon. Any other question? Okay, there are some technical questions. I'm sure Diego will look at that. I would like to thank to MIT team for helping us to arrange this workshop. This is just the beginning. This is just the pre-hack workshop. Don't worry, we will be in person, and there is even like a face-to-face conversation we are really looking forward to have. Now I will leave the stage to Diego and Josette for the technical side. After this, there will be a Q&A session, so feel free to stay there and then ask any questions. We will not leave till every question being answered, okay? Great. Diego, stage is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Farhan. So as you said, basically our objective here is to get you up and running, get you started, get you really thinking about like, yeah, I have this crazy idea. How do I go about, making it happen, right? So starting a little bit with like what are we going to be dealing with today is just a quick introduction to Meta's XR SDK, as well as understanding the interaction SDK. Just giving a brief explanation. Hey, here's how you get started. How do you get it? It is oriented a little bit on the Unity side. So even though all of this is possible in Unreal as well, this is kind of what we're focusing on just because it has a bit of a wider reach. Then you said it's gonna go on to the introduction to the mixed reality utility kit, as well as building experiences with MRUK. So let's get started. First of all, who am I? Hi, I'm Diego. My name is Diego Gonzalez. I'm a senior developer at a company here in Vancouver called Buffalo Buffalo. Fun fact, that's actually always a correct sentence, no matter how many buffaloes you have. You can look it up on Google. I've been with the XR Bootcamp for quite a while. I was an alumni of their first class, and ever since then, I've been, mentoring students, consulting here and there, saying, "Yep, we can do this and that." I have worked with in multiple XR and non-XR projects, so games, enterprise application, medical software, the whole spectrum. And currently I'm working with an indie company, but I've also worked with like big companies like Unity, Niantic, Blizzard on experiences. So yeah, that's a bit of my background. So first things first, why would we use an SDK? Why don't we just go and get everything raw dog, as we would say nowadays? Very easy. As Laura mentioned, when you're in a hackathon environment, time is of the essence. You really need to get your idea off the ground quickly and being able to show it off to people, right? So this SDK having a lot of features already available to you, it's a great tool so that you can say, okay, from 0 to 100 in 60 minutes. Well, maybe not 100, but quickly. Then the other thing is you don't start from scratch, right? One of the greatest features of these SDKs is that they also come with examples. One of the things that is very useful to as a programmer, as a designer, is like, okay, there's this new platform and I don't know how to use it, but if I can find a working example, I can use that as a jumping off point. So this SDK coming up with so many jumping off points, as well as tiny little like sample scenes that showcase concepts, is such a great starting point that you can either ideate from them, or it's not like, this is how you do these things specifically, right? So it's a great thing that a lot of them have been used from having cared for like previous use cases. We live in a time and age where I would say we stand on the shoulders of giants. Historically, in the early days of XR, having to build a lot of these interactions was possible, but it did take a lot of time. And since there was no standardization, one interaction idea that you might have might not be like standard. So, this SDK coming as well with some interactions that already exist, as well as development guidelines, is such a great resource to have. So, moving on a little bit, some of the things that you're gonna need is hardware prerequisites. A supported Meta Quest headset, well, of course. It can work actually all the way from Quest 2, but we do recommend Quest 3 and Quest 3S just because the mixed reality capabilities on those is a little bit better. Of course, USB-C cable, so you can just load in your stuff directly, as well as being able to do link. For those who don't know, link cable, doing link on your computer means that you are seeing, you're doing the rendering on your computer, and then through the cable, you see it on your Quest or through the network. Airlink is what we call it through the network, but it's a little bit slower, so just be aware of that. Windows 10 or further, or macOS here at 10 or further, funnily enough, in x86. Also, be aware that the link only works in Windows. So sorry, my developers. You would need a Unity, just so that you can access Unity in general. Fortunately, the Meta SDK is not gated to Unity Pro, so just as long as you have a personal use license for Unity, you should be good to go. And Unity 2021 or higher with the following modules installed. I'll detail them a little bit further, but basically, if you haven't installed Unity, just make sure that when you're installing it, you check in Android will support, OpenJDK, SDK, and well, the link itself is not a module of Windows, but it's additional software that you do need to download. We do recommend going to like the most recent Unity LTS version, so 2022 LTS or superior. Unity 6 is actually pretty good, and now that there's no runtime fees, like I can now more happily recommend it. But LTS 2022 or superior is a good starting point. Cool. So what's in this Meta SDK? Like, what utilities do we have available? Basically, it's a bunch of utilities and tools that work to provide you examples and other tools to be able to build experiences with. The MRUK specifically has also a lot of scene API and elements that allow you to work with your physical space, but in general, it can provide you things like information from the scene that you're physically in. It can give you prefab samples, and for those who don't know, a prefab is basically like a prepackaged element. When you're, for example, doing a game and you're gonna spawn 20 enemies, the enemy would be a prefab. So it would give you prefabs or scenes that you can like explore and use as a testing bed for your app. One of the things that you will find while developing, especially if you're like in close quarters working from home, is that having a good data set to say, oh, how would my app react if I'm in a big warehouse? How would my app react if I'm in a small bathroom? How would my app react if it's in the living room? Like things like that are very easy to miss, generally speaking. So the system of Meta just coming with a bunch of like different prefabs for scenarios is a great resource, right? It also comes with debug help. What does this mean is there's a bunch of like smaller tools that you can summon while you're in a build application that allow you to visually see the data that you're receiving from the physical space. For example, let's say that you're making an application that requires a room that is at least 5 by 5, right? And you technically have that physically, but you realize that things are not working correctly. Well, you turn on the debugging help and you realize, oh, you know what? Because of how this room is laid out, I can actually see that this part is not being considered because it was never scanned. Or just helping finding those edge cases that can really make or break your application visually, right? Even simple things as like, is this location that I'm pointing at technically considered inside of the room? Like, again, it's just a lot of like useful tools, right? And similarly, just like examples, code that already allows you to interact with things, grabbing, levers, buttons, just physical elements. And even better, these physical elements already come with Meta's design language for interfaces, which means that you don't also need to rack your brain thinking like, oh, how can I make an interface that can be scrolled, or how to make an interface that can be interacted with? All that also kind of solved, so that's great. Another super handy tool, I don't know you, but if I have to do a headset, it can ruin my hair. So one of the things that you can use is the simulator. Simulator is basically a piece of additional software that allows you to, well, for lack of a better word, simulate, but also debug and test your applications without having to physically wear the headset at all times. Unfortunately, we're in a day and age where they're still a bit heavy. So if you're doing this for 8 hours a day, it can get heavy on your neck. So just having this additional resource is super, super helpful. And especially even if you don't have hardware to test in, right? So All that being said, I do recommend that you do build often to your device because at the end of the day, testing physically is a lot more important than just being able to test. But you have several team members and maybe only one headset. This could also help so that they can also help you test, or just like test different conditions that you don't have access to. The simulator itself also comes with multiple different scenes so that you can test your app in multiple scenarios, as well as different lighting conditions. You want to do like an app that reacts to the local lighting, then you can see how it looks in like the different conditions instead of having to wait 12 hours for the sun to come down, right? Moving on from this is I'm gonna go on to like a few essential concepts, basically things that you should really know when working to create an app for mixed reality, right? The first one is build targets. As you might know, Unity as an engine can build to multiple different platforms, and building to the right target is something that, well, in this case, you should do, right? Basically, it boils down to an option in the menu, but it determines how Unity itself compiles your code and packages it for specific platforms. Different platforms have different requirements and different data types. They might have different platform-specific optimizations. For example, in Android, you compress your textures in a certain format because that's more efficient given the operating system. In iOS, you might do it differently. In Windows, you might do it differently, right? So for MetaQuest specifically, we are looking for Android. So just make sure to do that. A super special hot tip is when opening your project, make sure to open it in the right platform first, because switching platforms does come with a bit of a penalty of time. A lot of the times, Unity will re-import your assets, your textures, your models in a format that's better suited for the platform that you're building to. And if you switch platforms after opening it, you're gonna have to pay the penalty of opening your project in platform A and then switching to Android, which will take a while. So just try to open it in the right platform, and then you're gonna save a bunch of time, at least the first time, right? If you start with an empty project, this is not that big of an issue. But if you start accumulating projects that have a lot of textures, have a lot of models, that time really, really adds up. So just be aware that that's the thing, right? And here I just added like a quick thing. A very easy way to just open it without having to search this in the menu is in Windows, you press Control Shift B, or in Mac, Command Shift D. So it will open this little window, and you can see here in the options that it says Android as the second one. Very important as well for these to show up, you need to have them as part of your installation. So if you go back just a tiny bit to this part, when you're installing it, that's what the modules mean, right? Android build support is going to make it so that when we open our build settings, we're going to have the Android platform. If you didn't install it at the beginning, that's totally okay. You can always go back to the Unity Hub, and then there's a section where it says installs. You can see your current installs, and then you can add modules, and it's as if you're installing it. So not the worst thing in the world if you don't have it. Just be aware that that's the thing that you need, and I do recommend downloading them beforehand, testing them out, just making sure that you can produce an APK, because that is not the kind of thing that you want to find that it's broken while you're in a hackathon, right? You want your time to be dedicated into creating your ideas, into sharing with your teammates, not, oh, I could have downloaded these while I was at home and then I had to waste 2 hours, right? Okay, second super important concept, package manager. I don't know if you guys have seen like how it used to be before in Unity when it came to assets, but in the past there was the asset store, and that was inside of Unity as a browser. You would select the asset that you needed, and it would download directly. The problem with that is that was a little bit slow to have a browser inside of the editor, so they moved that as a website, and then all of the things that you can download from the asset store are now contained within the package manager. The package manager itself is a subset of a feature of Unity that allows you to import export and modify features and assets into your project. So if you have purchased, for example, in the asset store a model pack, hey, I want animals pack or spaceships pack, you can find it here under my assets, and it just installs it directly into your project. But you can also add features and assets from GitHub repositories, and if they have a specific name that can be reduced to company name dot feature name. You can also add it with the plus sign right here, and it will add it directly. You don't have to go into website and find it. I actually have the one for the SDK later in the presentation. Just be aware that's something that you can. And you can also remove them, right? Like, oh, you know what? I initially thought that I was gonna build this for PlayStation. We can remove that from our project. Now, I do see a question here: is MIT Reality Hack recommending a specific Unity version for the hack, or that should be planned with the team on Thursday? I would say it's more of a personal choice given like type of project that you're gonna do. It makes it easier for everyone if you are all in the same version, because then we can reduce the amount of version specific bugs that happen. Like, oh, hey, my Unity is breaking in these specific things, so as long as everyone in your team is at least on the same Unity version, that's good. We just recommend the latest 2022 or 6.3, right? Just because they're the most recent, they're least likely to have game-breaking bugs, basically. I mean, just as a fun or unfun fact, we had a project where the same Unity version in both Unity and in Windows and macOS had slightly different bugs, so that in macOS it would be a lot slower, and that was just fixing a later version. So that's kind of like another thing to consider, right? It's an older Unity version, so even if you install it today, like, you shouldn't run into those issues. Just that's a fun or unfun fact. How do you access the package manager? Very easy. You just go to the window menu, and it says package manager right there. So very easy to just find. Okay, moving on. So one of the things that you do if you just Google, hey, Meta XR SDK and find the asset store link, is there's more than one version, right? I'm just gonna go over two just because they're basically all or none. The Meta XR Core SDK is just exactly the bare minimum you need to make an app on the platform. It used to be that in the past, whenever you wanted to do back in the days when it was called the Oculus SDK, it would download things like avatars, voice, haptics, and a lot of things that you could, depending on your application, you could realistically say, hey, you know what? I don't need these parts. So they're occupying space in my hard drive, they're occupying space in my project, and even though I'm not building them, opening the project is slower because they're present, right? So what they did is, okay, that's actually great feedback. We'll make a SDK that only contains the bare minimum, and then you can just build on top of that, right? The all-in-one SDK actually contains all of those extra features. So if you want to do something with voice or voice recognition or text to voice, you want to do specific haptics, you can create your own vibration patterns, the interactions, which are, again, depending on what you're doing, really important. If you just want to be able to not have to design a whole menu system yourself, the interaction becomes then a really useful tool, right? In this case, for the hackathon, the all-in-one SDK should be fine. It's gonna come fully featured. Just know that these different exists, and which one you should you get, right? I put here a couple of very handy links. Don't worry, we're gonna put all of these in our Notion so that you can access it at all times. But if you wanna just go ahead and at least scan them with your phone, go through. I'm gonna give you like a couple of minutes. Just the documentation for the SDK is, as every good SDK, website where you can find all the nitty-gritty details, tutorials, how to use it, basically. And just as a store link to the Meta SDK so that you can just have it on your account, and then the moment that you can, get into the hackathon, just get it downloaded. So I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to scan this if you want to do it now. And maybe it's a good time for everyone to ask questions as well, if you have so far. A cool thing that we always like to do when doing this kind of workshop is just ask everyone where they're from. So, I mean, we can also do that while waiting for people to scan it if they want to. And Paul Forrest says, about switching platforms in Unity, taking forever. If you don't want to run the same project on different platforms, say Android for Quest and Windows, keep 2 different copies of the project and keep them in sync via version control. The library folder is the one that gets updated based on the choice of platform, so make sure to ignore it in version control. For very large projects, that takes like an hour to import, so that will save a lot of time. Yes, that's actually true. Also, a tip related to that is if you want to share your project in anything that's not version control, you can make it a lot lighter by deleting the library folder, because the library folder will be rebuilt when it's open. So you're not missing out on anything if you delete it. And I don't know if you want to do like an archiving in Google Drive for someone that's like a less technical team member, that's a way that you can do it. Just delete the library folder. And things like that. Now Felix Joaquin, sorry, says, do you think extra games have just as good success of winning some challenges at reality hacks? Last year I saw more applications over games. Yeah, the thing is, in this day and age, I feel like there's a lot more room for innovation that is not on games. Like I realize that like people are looking for more like social experiences, because as VR is reaching and MR is reaching like a wider public, some people actually feel a little bit intimidated um by like, oh, you know what, no, I'm not good at games, so I don't want to do that, right? But if you say, hey, you want to like just come and hang out, like I have this cool thing that I want to show you, and we can do it together, I can guide you if we do it at the same time, like that feels like something that has a lot more draw these days than just games, right? Because you have to consider that also games like VR games as a whole are a bit more mature. So like there's, unless you have something that's extremely innovative, it's hard to stand out, right? Okay. It seems like there's enough time for you guys to like just check this out. So I'm gonna move on. So again, this is another link. This is our Notion. For those who haven't used it, Notion is a bit like a wiki. It's a bit like a living document that is like easy to browse because of how we have it set up. It's basically where we're gonna be putting like guides, resources, things that like we consider could be useful to you, and we will continue to update it as we, if there's a lot of technical questions about one specific topic, or people are getting stuck often in a specific thing, we'll put like solutions, resources here. So again, scan it. Again, it's gonna be available to you, so it's not a thing you have to rush into. Just something to keep in mind, right? And you have like questions or like running into issues often, please let us know. Our objective here is to help you as much as we can, right? So yeah, when you're developing for mixed reality, here's a few other sets of tips and tricks based on these tools that you have available to you, right? One thing that happens very often is once you load the SDK, it'll ask you to restart maybe 1 or 2 times. That's perfectly normal. It looks kind of scared, like, oh, did I break something? No, it's just, it'll restart. Sorry, there's a question here for Daydream. I think extending XR technology to a broader audience outside of games really lends to more room to grow in the possibilities as well, and shows people how many other things this stage can give us. Yeah, absolutely. I will second that as well, right? I have had like a very successful run of introducing people using a lot of like Meta's first series of experiences, which are basically first steps, first encounters, and you just have them explore like, oh yeah, wow, this is a cool new thing that we can do, right? Anyway, oh, sorry about that. Going a little back to tips and tricks. The quest link, just use it whenever possible to avoid login iteration times. I will really try to hammer in this point. quick iteration times is gonna be really useful. Do keep in mind that the link comes, and just testing in the editor in general comes with a bit of a performance cost, but shouldn't be significant enough for you to not try it. It is a good idea to do both, but being able to make a change, put your headset on, press play, wait 3 seconds, and then seeing it's just such a powerful thing. I come from a time where building to Quest was very, very, very slow. And just seeing that changes, like, okay, I changed one string of text, I'm gonna go make some coffee. Yes, I see a hand raise.
Yeah. Thank you. So the question is, I'm one of those Mac developers who unfortunately do not have the pleasure of using this link. Do you have any, approach or idea how to do short cycles or short development times using a Mac? Because I don't have a Windows laptop and
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. I'm also a Mac developer, so I feel your pain. First things first, build early. Actually, that's gonna be a piece of advice that I'm gonna give a little bit later. But one of the things that you need to do is, as soon as you have it ready, make a build. It doesn't matter if it just says, "This is my build," and you have a build, right? Because building subsequently, it's gonna take you less time. So if you add one asset, you build again, it takes 30 seconds, right? It's also fortunate that like iterative building is slow. It's a lot quicker now. But I'll explain a little bit why. So, short answer right now: build early and build often, and it is related to the quest link, right? It is great to be able to iterate quickly, but also it is very important to make sure that as you add more things into your project, and as you add, maybe other libraries, maybe other things, if at some point it breaks, it's like, oh, it was this library specifically, right? It is a lot easier to recover from, de deleting that one thing that broke your project 15 minutes ago, that, oh, you know what? We haven't built in 12 hours, and we have built so many features that we don't know which is the one that breaks it, right? So, build quickly, build often. That's going to save you a lot of time, again, as a Mac developer. It has become like really, really nice that it doesn't take as much as it used to before. Actually, I don't think we added here, and I will add to the Notion. There's this additional software as well, which is called the Meta Developer Hub, which basically allows you to push builds to your Quest just by dragging and dropping them into a window. That's also very, very handy, especially for those that are not as familiar with the whole Android debug bridge and pipeline. There is ways to set it up, but just having it drag and drop, that's also like super, super nice, right? The other feature, which is shared anchors, I will explain this a little bit later, but if you want to do a social experience that's networked, but it's also local, meaning cloud anchors, and again, I'll explain that. It does require a little extra setup because it requires multiplayer. So just be aware that if that's a direction that you want to take, there's going to be a little bit more that you need to do before jumping into it immediately, right? So I'll explain that in a bit. And that there's more than one way to do one thing, right? Don't think that because it's already in the SDK, that's the only way to do it. But starting from the samples and the building blocks is something that you can get. Samples themselves are, when you have a package in the store, it is very common that you would have, hey, here's a tool, and here's an example how to use it. Through the package manager, you can see that the dependencies of the Meta SDK have their own samples. In the package manager, another thing that I captured that in this screenshot, when you open a package, you will see a few tabs, one of them being the samples tab. So for example, let's say that outside the Meta SDK, one very common one is the Text Mesh Pro, right? Whenever you import it, it says, do you want just the base, or do you want the base and the samples? Let's say you say, you know what, I think I just need the base. Oh, you know what, I don't know how to use it. Where do I get the samples? Where is that window, right? So if you go into your project manager, package manager, and see your installed packages, when you click into the package itself, you will see that there's a tab that says samples. And when you select that, you can then import into your project. You will be able to add those examples, right? Be aware that for the Meta SDK all-in-one, the part that says sample says, oh, if you import them, it will just import a text file that says, oh, the all-in-one SDK itself doesn't contain samples, but its dependency does. Because this package is divided into multiple sub-packages, you have to go to the sub-packages to get the samples themselves. Which is great, actually, because that means that if you're only interested in a subset of them, you can just get them individually, right? Okay, so, the samples, use them. They're great. They're awesome. More tips and tricks. Make sure to open the project platform. As I mentioned, they will save you some time. If you want to import the packet, the SDK directly, you can add com.meta.xr.sdk.all to just automatically download the full thing. So it's even quicker than just going to the asset store. Going to each one, download all the samples, super useful. And as I mentioned, just build right away. For two reasons. Yes, I see a question as well with a raised hand. Felix?
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question and for your time. Looking at the interaction SDK, I actually figured I could ask this question too, since I've been working a lot with Meta's building blocks. One of the issues that I have when I'm implementing the interaction SDK is the pop-up that comes out where would you like to use the OpenXR hands or the OVR hands? And a lot of the times that causes a lot of bugs for the builds that I'm running. What would you recommend that I go as a just standard, always go for that one for the least amount of bugs?
It really depends on your project. There's no universal answer. I guess depends on the platform that you are targeting. If you want to do just MetaQuest, probably the Meta hands better, optimized for the platform. If you want to do something that's multi-platform, the OpenXR might be a better choice.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's also, not a bad idea to continue to update as they come, but again, it depends on your platform. And I think the last you says OpenXR hands are better. So, I would go with your recommendation as well. Additionally, there is this meta tool that in the settings, get Ctrl-Shift-P player settings, that would allow you to quickly set up your Unity environment. What does this mean is because you need to do a little bit of extra setup, a lot of things that don't always look that they have an impact, like, oh, you have to set up your gamma correction or things like that. Meta created this tool that automatically finds and highlights setup elements that you still need to do, and has a button that says fix all, which is absolutely fantastic. It just changes all the settings that you needed to. It reloads everything that it needs to, and then it usually asks you, "Oh, do you want to restart?" Yes. So that's the thing. I would say as long as you have an empty project, Meta SDK, build one of the scenes, right? It will very quickly show you if you have anything that's missing. Sharing. I use SideQuest to transfer APKs on my Quest using my Mac. Yes, that's a great alternative to MetaQuest Developer, which is exactly what Luke also said. It works using exactly the same principles of Android Debug Bridge, but it actually precedes the Meta Developer Hub. So yeah, thank you for calling that resource out. I will say though, one of the cool things that Developer Hub also has is that it allows you to stream. So, if you want to do record the screen by someone playing in real time, that's another super cool tool that the Developer Hub has, right? So again, I do recommend downloading it. More tips with the sample scene is that you can combine multiple samples for your project. So I don't know if you knew this, but if you drag a scene into your hierarchy in Unity, it will load both scenes at the same time. So basically, it allows you to do having two documents open at the same time and move elements to one to the other. Just keep in mind that some elements are supposed to be singletons. So, for example, the MRUK, the utility kit, you technically only need one in your scene. So if you drag and drop it from another scene, might cause some issues like, oh, there's two, which one do I use? Error, 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 right? So, it's useful to have them. It's useful how to know how to move one thing from one to the other. Just keep in mind that you might end up with duplicate components, right? And one of the also newer and better like dev tools that they also provide is called building blocks. Building blocks are basically drag and drop components that you just open a window once you have installed Meta building blocks, and it opens this very handy menu, which like images that shows, oh, do you need this component? Just drag and drop it. And it shows you as well dependencies that those blocks might need. Yep, Felix says it's actually great to like experiment with stuff, and it also allows you to set them up super quickly, right? Like if you need, for example, surface projected pass-through, which is the ability of putting a window into your world that's projected onto a mesh, and you just add the building block, it will add the MRUK, it will add like dependencies that that project needs, right? I can't believe we can edit some of the scripts as well. It depends. As far as I'm aware, generally speaking, if they get imported into your assets, you can modify the scripts. If they get imported into your packages, you might need to make it a local package first, which requires moving it from the packages folder into the assets folder, and then being able to modify it. Because if you modify a script inside of a package, the change will be automatically reverted because they're meant to be closed. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Like for all packages that you import into Unity, like that's kind of what the difference is. I don't have like the resource on how to turn a package into a local package right now, so I can't recite it off the top of my head. But just be aware that like if you import some sort of like game asset or system that then you need to modify to make it into your own, that's what you need to do, right? To that point, actually, when you're in the hackathon, building blocks are absolutely like a super useful tool to get started quickly. And, knowing what you want to do will help you find the best building blocks that you need. But on the offside, when do you not use it, right? When do you decide to go for something that you need to do? Let's say that your application requires a very specific, very custom mode of interaction. Let's say I want to make an app where I want to be a bird, right? So maybe regular broom standing via rig doesn't cut it because I need to move my via rig. I need to like I don't know, track the distance between like a headset and the controllers to make wings. I don't know. I'm just going off the deep end, something like a very non-specific, non-standard use case, right? If you want to do something that's very custom, I would say look at how it's done through the building blocks and then build it yourself, right? Again, it all depends on your application. There's no one solution and there's multiple ways of doing things. Just be aware that even though these are like a great way to get started and understanding how to make them happen, they're not a one-stop shop solution for absolutely everything, right? It's a great starting point. It explains a lot of things. It'll make it work very quickly, but they can't do all, right? Here's a few screenshots like kind of how they work, and just seeing them in your scene, you can explore a little bit of how they're put together, right? Okay, you know what? I'm seeing here that in the camera rig, they have a tracking space as a separate game object that's child of the camera rig. You have left hand, right hand, and head as independent children, and out of those, we have the controllers, we have the hands. One actually very common issue that I've seen recently is if you add the VR rig building block and you don't want hand tracking, and you go into your OBR manager and say, hey, this app is going to use just controllers. If you leave the data for hands on your camera rig, it will still work with hand tracking, even you explicitly said no to, right? So, but it's because you should look into like how they're put together, right? Oh, another thing that like it has as a dependency system is that it will show you the dependencies. Like, oh, for example, this component requires this other component to work. If you remove it, it's gonna break, right? So, and that's already set up in the inspector for every building block. So it's really handy, right? Reverse engineering them is something that like will help you like get a better understanding on how to implement these features if you would need to, right? Then one other very important feature I want to highlight that also comes with the SDK is co-location. What does that mean? Is being physically able to see to share space with multiple headsets. This used to be like one of the most complicated features there was because it requires multiplayer, it requires synchronization, it requires like maybe even sometimes like calibration. But now that there's shared anchors in space, it allows you to create local multiplayer experiences. Way back when, VR experiences that were in network were like, you stay in your house, I stay in my house, and we connect online, and the environment is completely digital, right? But now we don't need to limit ourselves to that, right? With the advent of MR and more importantly, being able to scan your local spaces, you can share a local application with the people that are around you, right? As we said, just be aware, this does require a little bit of extra setup, and I would grade these on a little bit higher level of complexity than just a local multiplayer experience. We will have, however, like guides on how to set it up. I will always be also on the lookout because there is sometimes where Meta will release like a new version of SDK, and it might just come with like, oh, here's an easier way to do this, right? So do stay aware of like the news, like, hey, when there's a new version and stuff, right? But it's a super cool way to make a shared experience that's local. Now, I think if I'm not mistaken, yeah. So this is kind of where we finish our introduction, and then we'll pass to the technical part. I will go over these key takeaways again, things that kind of we've already mentioned. But if you have like any other technical questions about this part, it's a good time to ask them before I pass it along to Giuseppe. So yeah, just to close this part up. Avoiding common pitfalls, like deploying to your base very early to catch errors. We can already talked about this. Build early, build often, and in the meantime, just use late, right? Leverage sample seed as a starting for your project. That's also a great idea. If your idea is more about the execution, or if your idea is more about like what can be done while still using these levels of interactions, just getting started with something that already works is fantastic, right? Don't use building blocks before determining your capabilities for free play. This one is very important. The technology should be in service of you achieving your idea. You shouldn't limit yourself as, what, I started with this building block scene and I can't do that, so I'm not going to put that in my idea. No, it's the other way around, right? Have the technology work for you, basically. Cloud anchors for sharing instead of shared anchors for fast prototyping. This is what I was referring a little bit in terms of the multiplayer aspect. Share cloud anchors mean that you can have your position shared over the network. You don't need to be like exactly in the same spot at the same time, but it's a little bit quicker than the local space anchors. So you can test with those, and once you're ready to move on your application into like local network multiplayer, you can do that part, right? And SDK errors and computer specific errors do happen. So always just raise your hand. We now live in a time and date where like we have a lot of help from large language models. So it's never a bad idea to A, ask for help, and B, just do a quick GPT search like, hey, this is what I'm trying to set up. This is the issue that I'm running into. What can I try, right? Just be in mind that can always not be as accurate as we want it to be. So it is always useful to ask for help when you need to, right? Now, Ben has a question here. Thank you for all the info so far. A couple of quick questions. Do you need Unity 6 for building blocks? No, you don't. And are there any advantages to 6 over Unity 5? A lot of it is the interface and streamlining of a few systems here and there. If you're like really comfortable with Unity 5, that's perfectly fine. It says, are there also custom gestures with building blocks? That I would need to look up. I don't remember, but the hand interaction system does come with quite a few things. So, maybe going to the hand, tracking building block and seeing how they do their gestures might be a good way to reverse engineer custom gestures, right? And says, are there networking resources for collocation? Is this directive accessible with the building blocks? So, short answer, yes. Long answer, not exactly. There is samples that will show you, oh, yeah, this is building blocks working. But if you want to make it a custom application, there's a few extra steps that you have to go through, right? I don't remember because my experience with collocation is a little bit on an older SDK, but at the time, they were using a technology that's called Photon Quantum, which is a very commonly used technology for networking. And you need to, just register for an account, get a free license code so that you could have use of the SDK, just things like that. So, I mean, totally fine if you're going to use Unity 5, if you already have it installed or whatever. Just keep in mind that it's better if you and your team are on the same Unity version. So, I mean, if you're gonna assemble a team there, just chat it early on so that you can have the best, the most time dedicated to you building your idea and less time dedicated about, the technical side of things, right? And that's kind of it for me. I will pass it along to Josette. So please, Josette, if you could grace us with your presence, that would be fantastic. In the meantime, I am happy to answer other questions that pop up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Diego. I'm going to go ahead and present. I think, oh, perfect. All right, everybody. Let me get myself situated. All right. So, Diego, thank you so much because that is a huge part about development, just in general, is how do you get your system set up? If you can't have your system set up, then you won't be able to actually develop. And I remember, so a little bit about myself is I actually was a hacker last year. The last hackathon I did was like over 10 years ago. And so coming into a hackathon like this, especially XR related, my mind was completely blown because, thinking about how much technology has grown, like again, my last hackathon as a college student over 10 years ago, like there was no XR and now we do. So I think props to MIT for having this and everything. And one of the big things is when I was having issues just getting my setup in Unity. It was frustrating. It took a lot of time, but finally, I'm glad we have this course to kind of nail down some of those issues in the beginning. So then you can kind of get to the fun part, which we're going to get into MRUK, which is the utility kit, which is where you're going to actually be able to create your MR experiences. So again, the fun part. So again, I also am a alumni of XR Bootcamp. I took a course, I think it was back in 2020, prime COVID year. And one of the big things I wanted to learn with XR Bootcamp was hand tracking. And it's been an honor to still be here. Now I'm mentoring you guys, which is awesome. Maybe I'll see you guys, students, converted into mentors later down the road. So yeah, very exciting times. I am a full-time VR engineer at Specular Theory. What does that mean? Well, I don't do much AR these days. I'm fully pretty much in VR. A lot of things that we do at Specular Theory is working with the United States Air Force. So pretty tough stuff. But again, with the help of XR Bootcamp and MIT Reality Hack, actually, I was able to succeed into this job and still ongoing. Part-time, I'm also a 3D tech artist, so I kind of like to fiddle around with 3D holograms and holographic displays, specifically Looking Glass related. It's helped me a lot in, getting that extra money. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and there's so much art and community. And to integrate tech into that is so important because there are so many non-technical people where we live, and technology scares them. And we don't really want to scare people out there. We're trying to use tech for good. So yeah, very honored to be able to be that. Yeah, and so again, storytelling experiences and a lot of training simulations. So let's get into it. Mixed reality, what is it? So it is being able to have your digital objects content within the physical world. You see, I have two examples on the left of me. So what's the first step to all of this is this thing called pass-through. With Quest 3, it's been such a joy. I know with Quest 2, we still have a thing called pass-through as well. But having more what we call color pass-through has been exciting. Less of a headache to actually do some fun things and experiences. So with pass-through and mixed reality typically work in sync. They're definitely hand in hand. Pass-through mixed reality is referring to the use of cameras on the headset to capture the real world environment and then get that data back to the user so you can actually see it. I will be doing a lot of Unity demonstration, but again, kind of going off of like, what are those cameras? As you can see, I don't know if you can see, but they're right here in front of the headsets. These are the ones that are important to actually be able to get that data, do pass through, and then get that back to the user. And so the thing is, what I actually learned from MIT last year is I always thought, mixed reality is always involving pass-through. And most of the time it is, for sure. You're going to see a lot of experiences using pass-through. But then I learned last year, like actually MR doesn't require pass-through all the time. Like there is like an example that I have to the left of me where there's no pass-through. But why MR is that kitchen table right there is actually physically my kitchen table, but then I overlaid it with like a fun, nice, clean, digitalized asset on top of it, as well as like the whole environment is completely digitalized, like what you see typically in VR, but it is completely map to map to all your room objects. So I thought that was really cool. So if you've never done pass-through before and you want to like just go in and test it, Diego was talking about building blocks. You can kind of quickly like start with, step one, let's see if we can get pass-through working before creating an MR experience. So there is a building block that you can quickly import into Unity. It does require the camera rig, which I think most of us know is necessary. And then, yeah, you have a building block that can import that in there. A big key feature to when you go into your camera rig, there's a script called the OVR manager, which is handling your head, your hands, how things are actually functioning with your headset. And so within that, there's two key features: scene support and pass-through support must be what I'm saying enabled, or in this case, must be toggled to supported. Once you have those two toggled to supported, you're off and running. Go ahead and test it out and just see how's it going. Now, what's cool about the building block, though, is if you use it like this, it will automatically get these two to be supported. So the next part to getting your MR applications off and running is scene understanding, which is also a really cool part. So this is the ability for the system to understand your physical environment. What that means is you will need to go onto your headset and complete what Meta is calling a space setup on your headset to actually know, okay, where are things actually located? My tables, my walls, my wall art. I mean, the list can go on. They can now detect lamps. I thought that was amazing. So yeah, so this is so compared to last year, huge improvement already in what, a year is that, and I'll show in the next video, kind of talking about it right now. it now automatically detects your walls, your ground, your furniture. And when I was hacking last year, we had to actually, after scanning it, manually go in and say, okay, this is my table. This is my wall. And it took a lot of time, actually, especially at a hackathon where time is of the essence here. You know, manually we had to do that. And now with you guys this year, Meta and the scene understanding system does that all for you. So huge time saver, and great job to Meta for that one. So yeah, so examples is like quickly placing a flower pot on your kitchen table. I have a little example. There's a game that you can play that kind of does this, where you can, like, you know, go water it and it's next to, you know, your other actual physical plants. Um, and then kind of going back to space setup, once that's complete, that data is then completely stored onto your headset. And then you can kind of go into Unity and start working on your MR applications. So I am going to show what it's like to set up your room or your space setup. I'm going to make sure I'm at the highest quality here. All right, and action. So first up is you're going to go into your settings on your headset. I like to move that over a little bit. Perfect. We're going to scroll down and find environment setup in our settings. Then we're going to go to space setup. And then here comes the fun part. We're going to start to actually now scan my space. So in this case, I'm scanning my room, and we can see it's going through the whole process of things. Again, we've talked about this before. I think Diego also mentioned lighting. Make sure you have good lighting. Obviously, the cameras need a way to see things, so I have my lamp lights on to be able to help the scene system get it going. All right, so then I get a menu that says we're good to go, and I went ahead and continue. And now we can see the outlining of everything. I see my walls, I see my TV, I see my desk, my door, which could be adjusted. And so I'm kind of at first getting a sense of like, okay, what do I like here? And maybe like, what do I want to adjust here? So I can see I like everything primarily, but there was a few things that were missing. So we're going to go add furniture. And I wanted to actually detect my wall art. And so here I am manually going ahead and outlining my wall art. I tell the system what it is, and then I either finish or I can continue. So I'm able to nicely walk and go to my next one without tripping or falling. Thank God to pass through. And then select wall art. I think I can get the gist of it. And now I'm going to finish. So I like everything, I'm going to continue. And now we see the setup finishing up. One of the last steps is detecting what is this space. So I go through the list of things, selecting it's my primary bedroom. Beautiful. And now we're going to complete it. What happens is now it's going to save the data, and I'll pause it there, into my headset. And so you can do multiple. Obviously with a hack, I suggest starting with one. If you time allows, and this is, you want to do multiple depending on what your use case is, go for it. But start with one. But as you can see, you can do multiple at home after the hack. Go have fun with it, play with it, all the things. I am going to pause here, and let me see if there's any questions real quick. Okay, we're good to go. Great. All right, so we're now going to get into the
Sorry,
Unity part. Oh,
excuse
go
me.
ahead.
I have a quick question regarding
Oh.
that. No worries. Regarding the room setup, is there a way to, you know, share the setup with some other people? Let's say you scan your main bedroom and then you get friends coming over. So, and you would do like a local multiplayer experience, let's say, and then can you share this setup with them, or would they need to rescan all of that by themselves? Is there a way to, you know, airdrop it over to another headset? Do you know that by any chance?
So I was going to say, if you're going to do something like a multiplayer system and sharing that data, I'm not too familiar about that because typically that data is being shared onto your headset only. So being able to share your room setup data to another individual, I'm not quite sure if we're there yet. But in general, yes, if you are in an MR application and you're in multiplayer, like you have your own room and you have your own room set up, and then they have their own room set up, but you are still able to kind of socialize, play with each other, but you're just in your own data sets.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So we're going to go on into the Unity part of actually getting you up and running to create your MR experiences. So this is huge. Again, we did not have this last year, what's called the MR Utility Kit. I went over it a few weeks ago and my mind's been blown and I'm like, oh, I wish I had this for my hack last year. So yeah, very exciting again. So what is MRUK? So it is bringing your scene system to life in Unity. It's offering developers a framework for integrating real-world environments into their mixed reality experiences. There is a prefab that we will go over that's huge. Without this prefab, you won't really be able to do much. So actually not really much mixed reality at all. So it is providing tools and basically components to help developers get off and running. We'll talk about how MRUK can spawn objects really easily, and we'll get that into when we get into Unity. One of the big things is, yes, so I know Diego talked about having all of the SDKs involved. When you have it all in one, you will see in your package manager the utility kit. My suggestion already when you start to explore this is to go ahead and start importing some sample scenes and start to familiarize what is this system. So what's great is you go again, manager, there's a tab called samples, and then you have a whole list of things that Meta has already created for you. So I kind of imported the basic, scene understanding, there's a floor zone, and it gives you just a description of what each one is. Today, we're gonna go over basic and multi-spawn, and then as well as I've actually created a quick one of my own to kind of show you how I was able to use this sample scene to help me create my own scene. So I will show some Quest link setup, but don't worry for my Mac users. Once this is over, I'm going to help you guys as well in showing how you can kind of use a little bit of a simulation when it comes to MRUK as well. Why I typically like to use the Quest link setup if I am so gracious. Again, I have Windows. I'm very lucky. It's very one-to-one to your APK. So I like to develop with the link. This helps me really, really get things in order. I can kind of peek at things at real time, and I'll show that again. And then again, for my Mac users, don't worry. There's other ways to get you off and running so you don't have to keep making APKs and keep deploying because, again, time is huge. And so we want to be able to make sure there's no issues at all. So yeah, let's go over it. So one of the things, if you want to use link to start going off, is you will see a warning in Unity. I discovered this and I was like, what's going on? Why isn't my link working? Why am I not able to see my room? And this error right here, or this warning message, was the key to all of my issues and succeeding and going forward. When using link, you need to make sure that you have your spatial data over MetaQuest link enabled. As you can see, I did not have this enabled. And again, this warning message in Unity helped me a lot to get here. And then I went ahead and turned it on, and now, mwah, beautiful, we're off to the races. Now I'm able to actually see my room in Unity in real time. And it's honestly the best, especially when developing. I'm now going to show the Unity part. Okay. So I'm going to go off camera and go ahead and then switch into Unity. I guess before I do that, do we have any questions? See some comments. Okay, yep. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm gonna go off camera. Let's get into Unity. Fantastic. Real quick, so actually going back over to, let me see if I can move this menu bar over. Okay. For my window developers, so again, when you want to actually work with Link, again, I showed you some screenshots, but I always feel like, let me actually do it with you. So you're going to go into Link, you're going to go into settings, beta, and this is exactly what I was showing in the presentation. So I have mine enabled right now, but yeah, we want to mock it again. So we're going to go here and turn on, and now we're done. And now I'm going to minimize my link, and we're good to go in Unity. So I'm going to go ahead and show how to bring in some of those sample scenes. Right now, when it comes to the SDK version, we are focusing on 71. It is the latest and greatest. I can confirm I've had absolutely no issues with it, which is lovely. In the past, you never know. So let's go ahead and get those sample scenes. We're going to go to Windows, Package Manager, and some of the stuff that Diego also showed previously. I'm going to go to specifically this SDK here, so Utility Kit, and usually it will come first with the description. I'm going to navigate over to samples, and here we go. And obviously I have these already imported, but yeah, you go ahead and start importing these. I went through some of them. I felt like I didn't need to import all of them, but again, they have a description of what each one is. So definitely go over and only import the ones that you really feel like are going to help you. So we're going to start with the basic scene. What is here? So again, MRUK prefab. This is the key to everything. You will need this prefab. If we look, there's scripts already defined. All we had to do was just go into basic folder and open up this scene, and boom, we have everything that we need to kind of mock up our own prototyping. So yeah, this script is important. One of the things I want to go over before we hit play is this right here. So what does this mean? Data source. So right here, there's a way to say, hey, I want this scene to load based off of what my device is doing, or one of these example prefabs that Meta has already set up for us. In this case, I just have it defaulted as is, because right now I have my device connected. When I press play, it's gonna not load in these room examples, it's going to go off of my room setup. Now, if I unplug my headset, and these are going to be for Mac users, it's going to know, okay, there's no device connected. Let's go ahead and load in one of these example prefabs in. So we'll start with Link, and then we'll go ahead and switch gears to help some Mac users. So let's go ahead and press play. And we're loading. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and maximize so you guys can see what I'm seeing. And voila, you can see my living room. Now, I did a scene set up in my living room before we did this Zoom meeting. So now we see there's my couch. There are a couple of my tables. I have these really cool wall art over here. My second monitor, walls. Let's look over here. So yeah, we pretty much have everything going on, which is exciting. This is actually mapping one-to-one to what I'm seeing physically in my space. And again, this is where I like to use the basic scene. There's nothing going on here besides just making sure, hey, is my room being loaded correctly? Am I seeing everything like my couch properly, my wall art? Is it located correctly? And yeah, it definitely is. So if we want to take a peek a little bit of this, when you have your room, this generates a unique ID here, and this is huge. So here's my room. Meta does all of this for us, which is great. So it's already having a floor anchor, which if we look at these anchors, and we can talk about like, well, what is an anchor? It just refers to a virtual object, or in a way, a marker in the environment that is tied to a specific location in my physical space. So again, my floor, we know, oh, there it is. That's my floor. That's the correct anchor. Table as well. Let me find that table. Great. And so within my room, my MRUK room, creates child objects, which are all my anchors that are mapped one-to-one to my physical space. Now, why are you seeing blue? This is a way to help in knowing like where things are actually placed, so you can then be able to have your virtual content on your physical things. This right here, effect mesh, is exactly what's happening. It's giving us a material to place as like a temporary object to know where things are. Obviously, actually, this is in real time. If I undo this, when you want to deploy and to your headset and not have this blue everywhere, easy enough, just disable it. The effect mesh is just for more of like helping you on development purposes. But when it comes to when you have your final APK, just make sure like this is kind of checked off so you're not seeing blue. All right, gonna move on to the next scene where we're going to, I'll need to save that, spawning objects into your actual physical anchors over here. So this is going to require kind of looking into having our events or our triggering of events happening after something happens. What does this mean is it's going to go through and do all of this, and we'll go over each one of those when the scene is loaded. So once the scene is loaded and we're able to say, okay, we have our anchors and whatnot, now let's start spawning objects. So make sure when you want to start to execute content, execute the next step to your experience, that you add this to your scene loaded event system here. So if we want, let's look into maybe this object here. So find spawn positions. Very easy. All you have to do is, I mean, it's already set up again, which is great. But if you wanted to, you know, copy and paste this or add this later on, you can just literally go to add component and find little typo, find spawn positions. There you can go ahead and add it there. So what's going on here? So the first big step is what are we spawning? So in this case, there's an example here, very simple, to a light green surface marker. If we take a look at that, and I'll maximize here, this is going to be the object that we will be spawning based off of that spawning system. And then, of course, ideally, you would want to replace these example objects with your own. Next step is spawning amount. So how many we want to actually spawn. The number could, I guess, go up to 1,000 because that would be the max. And then location, huge, label and location. So this is where it's actually telling the system where we want to spawn. In this case, if we look into the drop down, there's ways like hanging down. So let's say you wanted to actually have like a plant hanging. That would be one example on top of surfaces. So like, you know, we'd want to put maybe a flower pot on, again, example I showed you in See and Understanding onto your table. Vertical surfaces, more of like, okay, like, do we want to like add our own digital art to my walls? So yeah, and now the labeling is all of these examples here. So we've selected table, couch, not quite sure what other is, but yes, bed, screen, lamp, plant, etc. So let's take a look now that we have this defined. We're going to sing the loading, loading, loading song. Loading, loading, loading. Right. Yeah, and again, sometimes it does take a minute, but once it's loaded, it's looking good. All right, so let's take a look. All right, my couch now has a bunch of those light green objects on the surface. My table here, let's look around here. Oh, my table over here now has them. And then of course, those other example objects of red tiles against the walls, what's on my floor, these brighter markers here. Let me see if I can go slow so I'm not getting anyone sick here. But yeah, this is really neat. And when you guys get to do this at home, I suggest kind of looking into this before you come to the hackathon, just to kind of familiarize. It's really cool stuff, and you're like, oh wow, look at this stuff in my living room. So, all right. Let me see if there's anything I want to go over here before we get into the last example. All right. So I've showed you two example scenes, the basic and multi-spawn. Again, this one is a good one for like if you wanted to have like random things being spawned in the air, like I guess in a gaming system, like your enemies being like spawned randomly. Like this is exactly the scene that you would want to use. Kind of similar if anyone's played the Ghostbusters game. And or you know, talking about non-gaming scenarios of just like having things on surfaces so people can kind of grab them, touch them or whatnot. Yeah, this is really great system for quickly spawning. All right, the last one I'm going to go over and then I will look for questions is a system that I actually got to make quickly, which was really fun. So as a developer, what did I do? Well, I started from, didn't start from scratch, that's for sure. I went into my sample, I went to the basic, and I literally did a copy and paste of base, and now I'm able to add on top of base. So in this case, I actually created what's called a room manager, and we'll get into it of what that is. Also, kind of going back to real quick, when to use building blocks compared to when we don't want to use building blocks. Obviously, we see in these example scenes that OVR camera rig has already been imported with all these things. So I didn't have to use building blocks to import much because it's already been done for me. But if you are starting from scratch, like again, if you wanted to just look at pass-through like I went over, then yeah, go ahead and use building blocks to kind of quickly import that. So yeah, let's take a look. What is going on here? Well, so in my case, I wanted to actually dynamically put an object against something. So in my case, I have 2 paintings in my physical world, and I thought, how cool would it be to replace those paintings with something else? So I'll go ahead and demonstrate, and then we'll go into a little bit of the code to see what that is. All right, and we're going to do the loading song. Yeah, and as you can see, like I have an older computer, so it's taking a little bit, but in general, that's why I did go off camera, just to make sure to kind of get this off and running quicker. All right, so again, you've seen this before, but look at this. We actually have 2 different paintings on top of my physical paintings, replacing what's in my real world. And again, this is super fun, super cool. Didn't take much time, but yes, was more customization of code. Little bit of code knowledge would be great. So let's actually talk about it. Beautiful, beautiful. I will leave that running for now. So again, I created a thing called Room Manager. What is in Room Manager? Let's take a look. So actually, perfect. So what is in Room Manager? So as you guys saw in my example, when I was playing in real time, I had 2 different paintings. I'm calling them very simple things, painting number 1 and painting number 2. And I wanted to have painting number 1 on my left side and my painting number 2 on my right side. So I have these defined here. And then of course I brought in some objects to actually connect to these variables. I then have a function called spawn paintings. What's going on in here is we're going to find this thing called an object type MRUK room. This was going back to, if I can bring up my menu. Let me bring this back up, Unity. Okay, going back in. Again, it's talking about, hey, can we find this object type room? This is it. This is what we talked about before, where it kind of comes in and creates our own unique ID. So we need a way to talk to this system to understand, how do I actually get these wall art items here? My child objects or my child anchors here. We need to be able to access the MRUK room. Oh man, I have to go back and forth here. All right. Go back to Room Manager. So here, now I want to say, hey, can you grab all these anchors? And now I have them stored here. So again, get room anchors, all those child objects that I showed. we're going to go through what's called a for loop. In this case, in C#, my for loop is very simple, so I kind of made it more of a for each loop. I went through the list of my anchors, all those child objects that you saw within that parent object of my unique ID. And I want to be able to retrieve each label, and so convert it to a string. And I want to just get my wall art. So again, I had two of them, my left and my right. Once I'm able to only grab my wall art objects from my list of anchors, I'm then going to create a list of game objects, calling it my wall art list, and I'm going to add it to my list. So now I have a list of only wall art anchors. After doing that, now it's time to quickly go ahead and get those really fun virtual paintings on top of my physical ones. So in this case, we do instantiation. We do the first one. So my painting number 1, I want to go ahead and instantiate that. And we're going to grab that first one in the list. And I've said, hey, let's go ahead and say, grab it. So my wall, I think this one is going to be my left one. And that's the first one in the list. And with this one in this case is, what does this mean? So it's saying, I mean, it's very small. If I could try and make it bigger. In this case, it's saying, okay, what is the object that you want to spawn? And actually, where do you want to spawn it? And this is where it's important. I'm telling it, I would like it to now, once it gets instantiated, to be underneath my wall art anchor. And I'll show you when we go jump back into Unity what that all means. And guess what? We just do the same thing, but now we're just going to do it for the second painting within the second object in the list, which is on my right side of the wall. So again, I want to go over this part of like, well, this is the most important part here. Yes, spawning it, but like placing it, and placing it very nicely too. So let me go ahead and do that. And for some reason, I'm gonna have to jump back in here, bring up Unity and share again. Okay. So that last, I think 34 or 33 to 34 lines of code is exactly it. So here, this is painting number 1. I told it, hey, please put this underneath this anchor. And now, boom, good to go. Let me actually make this a little bit bigger. It's nicely placed directly in the center of my anchor here. Suggestion, when you are cloning things, I would already, if we go back to my room manager script, again, these prefabs here, when you're getting these prefabs set up, I already at this point have it at position 000 and rotation 000. That right there is helping me already placing it nicely in the center of my anchor. If you start to kind of fiddle with this, it's going to be, you know, off center a bit, or you'll have to go into Unity and define that position. Again, I'm trying to make your life easier. And so, you know, maybe less coding. And so already having this clean cut prefab here for starters before you go ahead and start to code that. So again, now we have painting number 1 here, beautiful, underneath my anchor here. That's what I told it to do. And then we have our painting number 2 here. Keep in mind, scale can be whatever you want. So in this case, I needed to have my scale as best match at 0.75. And this one I had to do it at 2. So when you're building your assets, just make sure it's very clean. And scaling's right. Yeah, so again, whenever you get into your groups, I mean, you might, you'll probably suggestion for developers, find an artist, get a 3D modeler, make sure that you're the best friend. Of course, yes, you can find free assets. Unity Asset Store has a bunch of free assets. I actually got painting 1 and painting 2 from the Unity Asset Store for free. Unfortunately, not everything is free. So if you meet an artist on campus, you know, maybe have them on your team. Could be fun. Okay, I think that's it for showing as far as demonstration wise with, again, Quest Link. I'm going to quickly show, I'm going to unplug my headset. And I will actually go back into multi-spawn for some Mac users. So again, kind of going back over this right here. All right, so I've unplugged my headset. I've done nothing. All I've done is unplug. All right, let's go ahead and hit play. Let's see what's going on here. And wow, we actually have something going on here. Why is that? Because yes, it knows that I don't have a device connected. So it's going to then load one of these example prefabs. If you want to put your own, go for it. I suggest not really touching anything and just keeping this list as is, unless you're like, hey, I didn't really like this bedroom one. Maybe I will remove it so I make sure at next runtime it doesn't get spawned. I've went through most of these. They seem very good. Except for maybe other room empty. Not quite sure if you really need that. But yes, right now I have a bedroom. Again, same thing as before, but now it's just an example prefab. And this is your simulation right here. So actually, I'm going to maximize this so we can actually take a look. And just like you saw those green markers on my couch, now we have an example couch here. We have an example table here. So now you can kind of test out your code or your system to make sure that objects are being placed correctly on these anchors. Yeah, pretty cool. All right. So I'm going to go back to questions real quick. Those are wall pieces are the same size. All right. So I'm looking at Will's question. And I guess I can go back on camera. Okay. Hello, everybody. All right. So I noticed that your wall art pieces are the same size. Well, I had to make them the same size. We went over that. Would it be difficult, okay, between the anchors based on the size and shape of the wall art in order to place a virtual art piece that always fits just right? Yeah, that's a good question. So, in my case, I like had to manipulate my prefab to like kind of make it like really nicely against my outlining of the blue. So it's not difficult, no. It's just what I started with is the original prefab, at least for the wall art on the left one with the face, I think it was already at scale 111. And so I started off with that and I saw, okay, in real time on my link, I'm like, it's a bit small. I think if I want to like kind of like play with the scale. And so I went with 2 and I thought that fits perfectly. And these are the reasons why I do like to use Link, because already in real time without deploying to the headset with an APK, I can already make that adjustment. I know Mac users is a little bit difficult, but don't be don't be discouraged. Like again, I showed you some of those example prefabs there too. And so yeah, at that point it was able to kind of like quickly scale, knowing like I kind of needed to make that 1 into 2, and I think that looks good to go. All right. So I don't see any questions right now, so I think I'm gonna pass it over to the end, conclusion. Yeah, no problem, Will. Thank you.
Yep. So I guess we can like just open like the floor for like any remaining questions, and if not, just kind of wrap up. Is there any other burning questions?
In the meantime, maybe we can one more time remind everyone that if you want to have the overall understanding of the whole MR development tech stack, some of them are already being shared today. We strongly recommend that you take the free course, and also the recording of this amazing workshop also will be delivered pretty soon on the Meta channel, Meta MR Dev channel. You will actually can see the resources in the resources channel. You can see actually the exact recording link as well as the cheat sheet that we will share there. So free to look at that. I think tomorrow morning will be great. So if any questions, we can maybe wait for one more minute to see if there's any further questions.
I
Was
do
it
want to just
helpful?
make a point real quick. I know I'm going through the list. So again, some of the things, like I said, is try to do as much as you can, just going over some of the sample scenes before coming in, as well as I know the Grillazilla course was huge. So please, if you have time, do that prior. So when you get to MIT, you're off and running.
In the meantime, how did you find the workshop? Do you have any other further requests? Because we will be there in person, so maybe we can add to the menu for the in-person workshops. Just let us know your feedback. Your feedback is very important for us to understand how we can best support you while hacking during the MIT hack.
I have a quick question, kind of going back to the trailer. I know that pencils down is at 1 o'clock. Like, how much time would you estimate? You know, you want to have a polished result, but you also really want to display your product well so that people will really understand what you've accomplished. What would you say for a timeline for how much, you know, when should your prototype be done so that you can start your video, I guess is my question.
I can take some of that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, one thing that I can say, we have to stick to the schedule of the MIT team. I think they will give more information about the agenda. Usually pencil down means that you finish the video as well. But of course you can, because judges will come to you, right? So maybe you can still work on how you present to the judges, because keep in mind that at the end of the day, judges will not so much look at the materials, right? They are probably the only chance that you can show something is the time that when they visit you. So I think till they come, you can still work on the how you will pitch it, I guess. But still, pencil down means that I think everyone expects that videos and all the projects have been done by then. I hope it answers your question. I know, Diego, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would also add like don't wait until like your app is at a specific like completeness level to like start recording. You know, shooting some early B-roll footage, like even some concept video where like someone is interacting with your app and they're like doing the actions, like because the idea of the video is not to show it like, oh, this is the technical prowess that you achieved. It's more like, hey, this is what my idea is, and here's how I'm visually explaining that. So I mean, you could almost like you get acted, you could do that. So like don't wait until the last second. Rather think early, like how are you gonna present this idea, and start like adding some of that storyboard like early on, like, oh, you know what, we just completed this feature, so that's gonna go in like this part of the trailer. We record it now, right?
Yeah,
So
if
it's not
if I
like
can chime in
a
quickly,
linear thing.
Diego as well. Yeah, exactly. Like don't leave it to the last moment. Actually, you can start almost immediately as you ideate, and try to start recording some, some interactions and so on. This is usually the best policy. If you do it kind of in parallel, some of your team members might be more skilled in that kind of video making. So it's a good approach to start early. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. That's really helpful.
And keep in mind that the video that you create is one thing. The pitch that you will prepare, in-person pitch, right, is another thing. So you can have different strategies for this as well. Don't always think that, okay, I have created something as a video, then I'm limited with the video. That's not true. So you can have, I don't know, some kind of like slides, or you want to directly make people go into the direct experience. So it's up to you how you would like to spotlight different mechanics in your app. I think that's another thing that I would suggest, that you understand that there are two things. One is video, the other is more like the pitch itself. Any other questions before we finalize? Perfect. So Diego, Jose,
Ferran, you faded.
I didn't quite hear what he said, but I'm assuming he was just asking us to remind everyone that this is recorded. So we're gonna pass you the link. We cannot wait to see you there. Just stay tuned for like any more emails, information, resources that we'll send your way. So if you have any issues or anything, just let us know. We're here to help.
Yeah, and you see our faces. So again, next week, please come up to us, especially when it comes to anything that we talked about today. We'd love to give you a hug and sit down with you and code with you and develop with you.
Cool. Don't forget to have fun. That's also very important.